we did post a video on our socials, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, about our shower routines.
Mm-hmm.
You already kind of summed up some of the categories of comments that we got, but I do want to just quickly touch on a couple of things that I think were very valid points that came up in the comments to this clip.
Sure.
One comment that I personally was my personal favorite, which was, which person of color raised that man? Care to respond to that one? I run hot due to my high basal metabolic rate. Justin.
And a hive of bees once made me their queen. Geoff.
And welcome to Bands. Good morning, Geoff.
Good morning, Justin.
Geoff, I have huge news. I would say game-changing news for the pod.
Oh my God, tell me.
Well, Geoff, as you know, of course, this is a bit that I'm putting on. But as you know, we did start a TikTok account. And we are posting there.
I'm not seeing enough followers.
Check out the link in our show notes to follow us on TikTok. If you want to just like search, it's just at BandsPod1, the number 1. So we were not the first to take BandsPod, but we've gotten some engagement there already, you know, even though we don't have that many followers.
Listen, the people are coming after me already.
Okay, well, Geoff, let's get into that. Although, let me just say really quick at the top that we are going to be finally covering Beef Season 2 later in the episode, so stay tuned for that. But we got to talk about our mailbag episode and the response to our mailbag episode. Yeah. So we did post a video on our socials, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, about our shower routines.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, this is about whether or not you should wash your hair every day. So just as a recap, if you didn't listen to the last episode, I was saying that I think that a lot of people, especially people with long hair, do not wash their hair every day. And you were saying that you'll die on the hill that you have to like shampoo, not just wet your hair, but shampoo your hair every day.
Okay, well, I want to clarify several things. Firstly, you made me look bad in that clip intentionally. Whoa. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, you said, after we finished recording, you said you got to clip the shower stuff and post that. That's going to get a lot of engagement. And I got to say, you were absolutely right about that.
Justin, I've got a good instinct for that kind of stuff. Usually. Yep. I'm not batting 100, but I'm batting like 85, I'd say.
Sure.
I did know that was going to be a bit controversial, because many people in my life have told me that that's like a controversial take, and have also told me about their bathing routines, which are not the same. And that's okay. But I want to clarify a couple things. One, I'm not saying everybody needs to do those things, but I'm saying I need to do that in order to feel clean.
Mm-hmm.
We worked together for many years in a hot climate. I am a big sweater, and you know this.
Mm-hmm.
I look wet. If I'm outside for like 30 minutes and the humidity is like above 70%, I'm just schwitzing like crazy. So for me, I need to like wash my scalp in order to feel clean, because you ever like when you were younger, maybe like a teenager, you didn't have like the best hygiene. You ever like run your fingers through your head or like scratch something on your head and then your fingers smell like head oil? Do you know that? Son?
I gotta be honestly, no.
Okay,
but
well, we also know I'm a super smeller, so maybe it's like something
you're hypersensitive to that. Yeah.
But anyway, I just don't want that, and I sweat a lot. And then, you know, especially the last couple of weeks here, I've been out gardening. We got bug spray. I've got sunblock in my hairline. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got to come off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I also want to say I am a big exfoliator. I do that often. And I know people in the comments were saying if you wash your hair too much, or if you wash it every day, or if you exfoliate too often, your skin is going to be dry. And I will like to say that I have eczema, and I know all about this already. And I do thank people for wanting to share their suggestions. However, I'm going to do me, and that's okay.
You already kind of summed up some of the categories of comments that we got, but I do want to just quickly touch on a couple of things that I think were very valid points that came up in the comments to this clip.
Sure.
First one is that when we talked about everything showers, quote unquote, we said like a lot of people just mean that to mean washing your hair. But I think that that's often like a very gendered statement as well, because an everything shower for many women, not all of course, but many women also means like you're shaving, you're doing like the intense skincare routine, you're doing, you know, a whole host of other things that is not like an everyday situation, right?
Sure.
So like that is also encompassed in an everything shower. So that's one thing that I just wanted to get out there, that feel
through
like
the male gaze.
yeah,
Sorry.
I mean that's classic, classic Bants.
We are two dudes with a pod.
That is true. We also got one comment that I personally was my personal favorite, which was, which person of color raised that man? Care to respond to that one?
Well, I sure do. And I did in the comments. And I did think it was funny. But my dad is black and my mom is white. And I would say my dad worked a lot when I was little. And my mom was responsible for child rearing and making sure my brother and I were bathed, fed, and clothed for much of our childhood. And not saying my dad was absentee or anything like that. But my dad also had extremely short hair. And then he went bald, like starting in his like 40s. So I would say he doesn't have a ton of like black hair care tips for me.
Yeah.
And also, because I'm mixed race, I would say my hair is like curly for sure. But it's like got a weird texture to it. I don't actually know what texture it is, so I would love for people in the comments if they know what kind of texture my hair is. It'd be very interesting to me to learn this.
You definitely have like a tighter curl than I do, and I feel like
yeah.
We have similar upbringings in this way. Like my mom's also white. My dad's has Mexican background, and my dad's bald. So like I never got any like advice on my specific hair texture care. Although now that we're older, like me and my siblings are constantly like, so how do you do like XYZ thing? And it's kind of been like a learn as you go type situation.
You know what? I gotta say, the Benavides children all have great heads of hair.
We're trying our best. We're learning and growing all the time. Well, Geoff, that's enough about our mailbag less episode. Let's get into our hot topics for this episode.
Let's get into our hot topics.
And Geoff, I gotta admit, we got a couple of bummers here to start off with, but then we're ending with some good news, some good positive stuff, okay?
Good news!
Geoff, one of our favorite directors here on the pod is Luca Guadagnino, director of such bangers as Challengers.
Of course.
He has been working on his next film, which is called Artificial. This is a biopic about Sam Altman, who is the founder of OpenAI, of course, stars Andrew Garfield. This film was set to be released by Amazon MGM. Now, recently, it was reported that Amazon MGM has decided to pass on the film. They are no longer releasing it. And this follows an investment of $50 billion from Amazon into OpenAI that occurred a couple months before this announcement. As far as we know, this film is basically finished. It was slotted to be released in the fall. So this is not like it's looking bad in production, we're going to cancel it, right? This was Amazon, I think, even said in their statement, we just don't think that we're the correct partner to be releasing this given our relationship with OpenAI.
Right.
Since the drop, it's been a couple of weeks now, and the film has been screened at other studios to see if anybody would like to pick it up. So Netflix and Focus Features, which is under the Universal banner, have both passed on the film. A24 has reportedly screened the film, but has not yet made a decision about whether or not they would like to pick it up. So this is kind of like in a limbo, right? We don't even know if this film will ever come out. It might be lost media. I mean, we saw this a few years ago at the WB Discovery merger, where there were a few films that never came out from that, like I believe Batwoman or Catgirl or something, whatever the Ruby Rose starring Batman film was, that never actually came out.
Ruby Rose?
Yeah, that's
what a moment in time that was. Orange is the New Black era.
It may never come out. It may be picked up by a lesser film studio, a film studio that maybe we're not as familiar with,
Right.
But the thing that's crazy about this is that this is like an all-star cast. This is like a huge film.
Andrew Garfield, I memean, Spider-Man.
Well-known director. It's a really interesting situation that's gone on here. But Geoff, what's your overall take on this?
Well, I mean, I think how I feel about the A1 and the big investment into OpenAI. I'm not surprised that Amazon/MGM was like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore because they now need to protect their investment into this company and releasing a movie that I'm sure, because of who Luca Guadagnino is and what his values are, it's probably a damning take on AI in general.
That's what the reports are saying, is that it was not a overwhelmingly positive portrayal of Sam Altman. Because especially recently, we've seen a lot of negative reports about Sam Altman, people saying that he's like a psychopath. Yeah, but anyways, and it also features a very not positive portrayal of Elon Musk. He's being portrayed by Ike Barinholtz in the film.
Which, by the way, is great casting.
It is.
Really good casting. I love that. Yeah, I'm disappointed we're probably not going to get to see this. I'm hoping that Mubi will pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd because like I said, this is a huge film. It has an all-star cast. Let me just go through the list here. We have Andrew Garfield, obviously. Monica Barbaro, who's a rising star. She was in the A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic. Yora Borisov, sound familiar? He's the
Of
standout
course.
from Anora that we
Yep.
talked about. We raved about when we talked about that film.
He was
Ike
great.
Barinholtz, as I previously talked about.
Love
Cooper
him.
Hoffman, Jason Schwartzman, Chris O'Dowd from
Oh,
Bridesmaids.
wow. That's crazy.
So this is like a huge film by a great director who has like a track record of doing good work. And I'm worried that like it's just big enough that these smaller studios will not have enough coin basically to pony up for this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Geoff, do you think it's bad that all of our tech companies are buying up all our media companies?
Justin, I didn't even know, and I don't think anything's wrong with it. I want to be blissfully unaware, don't you know? Don't you feel that way?
I feel like consolidation is bad.
I want to know less things.
And I also feel like, I mean, this is reminiscent of a time when many of the movie studios were owned by like oil companies. These giant corporations are not willing to put out art that is critical of the product that they are shilling, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so much of our economy these days and our tech companies, which I think we'll get into in a second, so much of our tech companies are being propped up by AI.
Yep.
And 100%. It's just like a little bit of a load. It's becoming a little bit of a load bearing pillar in our economy and in the success of these tech companies.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It is a load bearing pillar. And I don't know how strong she is. I'm not sure how much weight she can bear.
And given that like structural weakness, are any of these tech companies that own these media companies, are they going to be willing to put something out that's critical of that pillar, right? Amazon surely isn't. Amazon would be the last studio I would expect to put out a film about this.
Right.
It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. You know, this might have been like an Oscar contender. It was planning on coming out in the fall.
Yeah, this would have been like our version of that Facebook movie.
Yeah, The Social Network, like the actual good version as opposed to The Social Reckoning, which I think...
The Who? I already forgot about it.
Exactly. Hey y'all, Justin here after the fact. A quick breaking news update. After we recorded the pod, Matt Delanie, host of the Hollywood Insider podcast The Town, reported that Neon, the distributor behind recent Best Picture winners Anora and Parasite, has picked up Artificial. No official statement has been made yet, but Matt is usually pretty reliable. We will discuss more next week, but anyways, let's get back into it. But speaking of A24, which I brought up at the end there, I think that let's add a little bit more context. This is a whole kind of a different topic, but it is related.
It does feel like we're in tech corner, I gotta say.
I would say we're a little bit in tech corner.
I hate that everything's in tech corner now. I hate the tech corner.
That's the thing.
I
We're
go
all
through
in tech
hell
corner.
Tech cornering.
America is just tech corner these days. A24, who again has seen Artificial, but has not just made a decision about whether or not they would like to purchase it. There's a little bit of additional context there. I would have said that A24 is maybe the most likely to pick this up because they have the money and they've been growing, although they still have a little bit of that indie cred. Again, recently it was reported that Google has invested $75 million in A24 as a part of an AI research program.
Ugh.
This, of course, is not OpenAI, but it does indicate that A24 is willing to get into bed with tech companies who are using AI. And just a couple of clarifying things, because when I first saw this, it kind of ruined my day. Like, I hate to be an A24 film bro, but like they do manage to put out quality films that are cool and they have like an actual like artist's, what's the word? They have a feeling of artistry about them, right? They have a feeling of idiosyncrasy. They have a vibe of like a little bit of a hipster vibe. They're a little bit strange. They're a little bit off kilter. And they've maintained that despite the fact that they've been growing, which I love. And of course, like, you know, never meet your heroes. It was always going to go downhill at some point. There's been rumors that A24 is looking to get bought by a bigger studio. So maybe they're trying to look more mainstream at this point. But this investment really made me feel bad, because how do you accept money from an AI company? And this is a specifically AI partnership, right? This is not just like Google invested in A24.
Right.
This is a partnership so that Google can understand the workflows of A24 creatives so that they can develop AI tools for those creatives.
Allegedly.
How do you accept that money and think that your street cred is going to survive? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think what you said is exactly right, is that they're planning on being bought by a major studio, so they don't need that indie street cred. They built up their fan base, and they did it by featuring artists who have great work and who produce great work. And now that they have like a captive audience, I mean, they did a great job. You're a member of the Triple A24 Club. You love to be.
I do love it.
So now they have like a very loyal following of people who are like, I can't wait for the next A24 film. So now that they've got that, they're like, all right, what's next for the business? And it's obviously get acquired by a larger place so that they can do a huge payout and have more money.
Yeah.
So I'm unsurprised. It's just classic capitalism. a theme of the pod today when I'm talking about beef.
It just sucks that it is classic capitalism. Like it's.
You thought this one was different.
I know it's like maybe it'll be different for us at Arrested Development. Like
Yeah.
I keep getting fooled. I do want to make a couple of clarifications because I don't think it's quite as dire as the initial headlines made it out to be. They've since clarified that like this does not give AI companies or specifically Google access to their work to train AI models. This is a more of like a workflow based.
Allegedly.
Well, here's the thing. If any specific generative video model were to train on films, commercially available films, it would be very difficult to tell.
Exactly.
And we've seen in history that without permission, AI companies have scraped, resources, whether they be text, video, from things like Reddit. A lot of generative AI models that for video have scraped porn without permission. Put it this way, I would be surprised if a lot of video like generative AI models have not already scraped A24 films, right? It's this whole like business model that AI has where it's like, break things, and move quickly. It's ask for forgiveness, not for permission,
yep.
Right? What I'll say is that despite all of that caveating, the agreement between A24 and Google, and A24 has put out a statement about this as well, is not giving them explicit permission to use the A24 catalog. It is more of, again, a workflow focused situation than it is like a content generation perspective.
Yeah, well, I don't trust them. So
yeah,
that's why I keep saying allegedly this is not what they're doing. But
the other thing is like, I was trying to think about why Google would offer this and why A24 would accept, because there's no like mandatory use of AI tools by A24 creatives. So like, what is Google getting out of this? Like, are they really learning about the workflow? And honestly, the way that I feel about it is that Google is using A24 to launder the image of their AI products. They're basically saying like, look, even the cool film studio is using AI. This isn't bad. We promise, even though Kane Parsons of Backrooms fame has been public about his dislike of AI, right? So to me, it seems obvious that Google is using A24 as just like a tool to launder the reputation of AI and to make it seem even more inevitable, right? It's like, listen, everybody's going to be using this at some point. Don't you want a seat at the table?
Yeah,
subscribe
even
now.
Cool indie makers. Yep.
Exactly. And it's just like, it feels very naive and uncharacteristically naive of A24 leadership to not see that.
Right.
I'm sure they saw it as like, oh, you're telling us they're going to give us $75 million. That's like the budget of a smaller A24 film or a mid-tier A24 film. And we don't even have to force anybody to use these AI tools. They kind of just have to be in the room. And it's like, sure, maybe if you're like an idiot and you don't realize how sinister some of this AI stuff is.
Right.
Yeah, it felt a little bit uncharacteristically uncool of A24 to agree to this deal.
And you know what? Everyone needs to just be cool. Don't be all uncool.
That's such a truism, Geoff. Such a truism.
Luann Del-Sup, she's really one of our best philosophical minds.
Yeah, thought leader for sure. Okay, well, that's enough of bad news. Geoff?
Yeah, let's talk about good stuff.
Let's get into good news. And I will say this one, I think the news broke on the same day as the A24 investment. And it did.
What a roller coaster for Justin.
It resurrected my day. It really did resurrect my day. So, Geoff, I would say after the last few weeks, Olivia Rodrigo is one of our favorite artists here on the pod.
Oh, yeah, easily.
She put out an incredible album this year that we discussed a couple episodes ago. She also announced a new festival that is happening this year. It has a lineup made up entirely of women. The festival is called Daisy Chain Fields. In a statement that Olivia Rodrigo gave to Pitchfork, where she kind of had like a zine release with Pitchfork where she announced this.
Love.
And it's really cool.
Deliciously vintage.
She stated that this was directly inspired by Lilith Fair, which is something that's come up on the pod before as kind of like this whole almost like micro genre of music or like micro community of music that came up that we kind of missed. And it's cool to see that being resurrected here in 2026. The lineup includes some big names. So just
huge
a few
names.
Chapel Roan, Doechii, Cat's Eye, Rachel Chinariri, and that's a real throwback. I think Gilly had her as her What's Good on our Brat episode. Really great artist. And then, of course, the OG of Lilith Fair, Sarah McLachlan, is coming back as a special guest.
Miss ASPCA herself.
At Daisy Chain Fields. And Stevie Nicks will be there as well.
The legend.
An incredible lineup. I also want to mention, and this is like perhaps the coolest part of all of this, is that the net profits from this festival are donated to a series of charities, which include Baby to Baby, Black Mamas Matter Alliance, Center for Reproductive Rights, Freeform, Johns Hopkins Center for Indigenous Health, National Institute for Reproductive Health, Planned Parenthood, So this is like a bunch of causes that I think you and I agree are worthy of receiving Olivia's dollars.
Big time.
This is just such a nice, heartwarming story. It's happening in Irvine, California on August 29th. Tickets are on sale now. So if you happen to be located in California and the tickets aren't sold out by some miracle by the time that this episode comes out, definitely get some tickets. Geoff, thoughts on Daisy Chain Fields?
I love it. And, I think I said a long time ago on the podcast, like, I miss when artists got together just for good and could, like, make sure their crew gets paid, but they're like, I don't need to net a ton of money from this. Like, I'm doing this for charity. And so it's really cool to see somebody as high profile who's like riding a huge high right now too with her album, which has like been critically acclaimed, just decide to like put profits to the back burner and just do something that's good for the world. And I love it. I mean, it's iconic behavior. I wish that I was closer to Irvine because I would love to go to this.
Oh, I would be there.
Great lineup.
I would be there. Lineup. It's an insane lineup.
Some of our faves, like true legends, Stevie Nicks, Sarah McLachlan.
It's crazy stuff.
I mean, and like Chappell and Olivia are huge and will probably be legendary figures, in decades to come.
Yeah, 20 years from now, this will be like going to Lilith Fair.
Yeah.
It feels that level of significance.
Yeah, Lilith Fair, I think, just had their 25th anniversary, I want to say, or maybe it was 30th. There was like a short special that I saw on YouTube, and it was like Sarah McLachlan being interviewed about putting it together.
Yeah.
I think she said that it was like, aside from her children, like her proudest accomplishment in life was like putting that together. Mm-hmm. And she did that when she was probably at like Olivia Rodrigo's like stage of life. Like she had put out a few albums and was a huge celebrity, and widely known and famous. But then she pulled together so many other great artists like Sheryl Crow, Liz Phair, the Indigo Girls. I mean, it's pretty incredible what she was able to do. Sean Colvin, I mean, great. So cool.
I will say also that Olivia Rodrigo, during the kind of press tour for this album and then now for this festival, she has been platforming smaller artists a lot, and especially artists that are kind of weirder and like on the alternative and rock space as well. And a lot of those artists are on the lineup here. So it's not just like, oh, I'm getting all my friends together to do this, but it's also like, who are some smaller artists that we can feature here and like really give them a platform? And it's just like, it's great to see Olivia Rodrigo just running the board right now at age 23.
I know. It's crazy.
I'm hoping that she just like keeps this going and is like a superstar for the long haul.
She will be. I think she's really got staying power because she's a true artist and she has a unique sound and vision. And I also think that artists who are fascinated by and like constantly inspired by different genres of music that's not necessarily what they produce are the ones that have longevity, because there's like a curiosity there that like feeds their creativity.
Totally agree. No notes on Daisy Chain Fields. I think it's a great idea. Love
it.
Okay, something that I'm curious to know your thoughts about, Geoff. We've been following closely the release of some new singles from the Charli XCX album, Music Fashion Film. The latest single, called Wink Wink, has been released alongside a music video. Have you listened? Have you watched?
I did watch the video, and I have listened to it. I really like the song. I do feel like, I think I texted you the other day and said I'm being sonically edged by this song, because I feel like I'm never quite getting the payoff that I'm hoping for. Like there's like a real anticipation, though, like there's a real anticipatory feeling when I'm listening to the song, and I feel like it doesn't quite reach a climax or pinnacle. But I also sort of like sometimes when songs and music are just a little bit unresolved. So part of me likes it. So tell me what do you think about it?
Yeah, this is what I think you've described this type of song on the pod before as a ditty, a little ditty. Maybe I have. First of all, it's just a little bit over 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
There's no bridge. It's literally just verse, chorus, end of song.
Yep.
So that I don't like about it. I'll put that out there. Like it feels like it ends and you're like, oh, that's the whole thing. But that being said, at the same time, this on first listen was easily the most catchy of the 3 singles so far.
Very catchy.
It has this like very like bedroom poppy kind of like guitar, kind of like light, glistening, glittering guitar sounds. There are these great guitar sounds at the end that I guess kind of serve as like the climax of the song, even though it's very low key. It sounds a little bit like it could have been off of the Yo Rod album. This is maybe the most, in some ways, like pop rocky sounding of the 3 singles so far because of those guitar sounds. I think lyrically it's funny. right? And I think that's what a lot of these 3 singles have been, is funny. Clearly saying like, oh, I'm grown up, I'm over brat. But then, of course, the titular wink wink is like, actually, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm fucking with you. And that's kind of the whole bit of the music video, too, is she's kind of doing like her Wuthering Heights aesthetic, like laying in a field of US strawberry. But then at the same time, she's flashing her tits. She's like showing her ass. She's like pressing her boobs up against the window of the greenhouse, you know? So it's like, you know, I'm not a bad girl, I promise. Wink, wink. Maybe I still am, right? Which is very Charli. And it's very like, again, it reminds me of I Think About It All the Time, and kind of the whole character surrounding Brat of like, I've grown up now, but then it's like a little bit schizophrenic because she's like, I still have this urge to kind of be a little bit crazy every once in a while, you know? So it feels very Charli.
I can relate, you know?
I just don't know that musically I'm like as satisfied by this song as I am by anything on Brat, right? It, like you said, it does feel a little bit incomplete.
Yeah, I agree with you. I keep feeling like, what is this album going to be like in its entirety? Because these songs all are so different than what we're used to.
Yeah. It feels more like a mixtape, you know, in the Charli, you know, she's historically put out mixtapes and albums, and the mixtapes have been a little bit more like a potpourri of different sounds and less like a unified body. Although there have been different eras of mixtapes. I think that some of the mixtapes people would argue are her best albums, right? Like Pop 2 or something, right?
Yeah, Pop 2's great.
But I do think that this feels a little bit like Scattered, you know, in terms of the style.
Yeah.
Again, we've kind of talked about this before, but maybe because of the expectations following Brat, she's like, I want to put out something that's like a little bit, not low effort, but just like not as unified in concept, and something that I'm just trying to have fun with, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to listen to the whole album and I'm excited for it to come out. But yeah, I think it's going to be very different. And I'm curious what the critical reception is going to be after something as monumentally like lauded as Brat, you know, and now we're doing something so different.
Yeah.
At a time when so many people's first exposure to her, even though she's been in the industry for like 11, 12 years, was Brat.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously isolated in our kind of like pro Charli bubbles of social media and stuff, I think. But I sense a like, this is the girl that you all were raving about during Brat. Like, I sense that will be the response. That. Yeah.
I think she'll kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she's almost hoping for like a lower, you know, I don't think she wants raves for this one, you know. I get that sense where she's like, I kind of just want to go back to where I was.
Yeah, I imagine that's been quite, I mean, like we kind of saw her like speak to that in The Moment, right?
In The Moment,
like we saw the exhaustion and like all the suits wanting to capitalize off of the moment, to capitalize off of her success in that that was just like an explosion, like lightning in a bottle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the increase, she also talked about it in that British Vogue interview where she was like, I think she feels a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I don't think she's necessarily letting it affect her work, but it's hard for it not to affect her psychology, you know, as we saw in The Moment. Yeah. All right. Well, Geoff, that's our hot topics for the week. Let's take a quick break and we'll come right back to talk about season 2 of Beef.
I can't wait. I love to beef.
And we're back.
We're so back. And Justin, I've got a lot of beef with you.
Oh, well, that's not news.
Let's work it out on the remix.
And that's a Charli reference. Today we're talking about season 2 of the show, Beef, which is, of course, a Netflix anthology series created and showrun by Lee Sung-jin. Season 1 premiered back in 2023. This was a huge commercial and critical success. It starred Steven Yeun, Ali Wong. It won 8 Emmys. It basically swept the limited series category. It won Outstanding Limited Series. It won Best Actor in a Limited Series. It won Best Actress in a Limited Series. So this was like a huge critical success. No surprise that we got a season 2. Season 2 premiered in April. And as opposed to the kind of the 2 leads that starred in season 1, we have 4 leads in season 2. So we have Kaylee Spaney. She's a rising star. She was in Civil War. She was in Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man. She is one of the stars. There's also Charles Melton, who, of course, got his star in Riverdale and was in May, December, and a few other things since then.
May, December. What a movie.
Really good.
Did you watch it?
I did.
I can't remember. Okay.
Yeah, we may have watched it together at your apartment. I think we did.
Oh, you're right. We did do that. Yep.
That was really good film.
Love that movie.
Charles Melton, incredible in that film. Like,
He's
really
very
great performance.
And he also might be the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life.
He's one of those A1 kids from that generation. You know what I mean?
For real.
Kaylee Spaney and Charles Melton star as Gen Z couple Ashley and Austin. So they're kind of like one couple in this beef. And then there's a second couple, an elder millennial couple, Josh and Lindsay. And this couple is portrayed by Oscar Isaac and Carey Mulligan. So I would say all four of these actors, like absolute stars and incredible actors in their own right. So that, in my opinion, excellent casting. Episodes of this season are directed by Lee Sung-jin, the creator, Jake Schreier, who has done a few things, but he really got his name with Beef Season 1. And after doing really well in Beef Season 1, he went on to direct Thunderbolts for Marvel. So he has since become like this big action film director. There's also a couple episodes directed by Kitao Sakurai, who worked on the Eric Andre show and has since been hired to direct the adaptation of Street Fighter. So like a couple of these Beef directors after Season 1 have gone on to do much bigger things, and they've stayed on in Season 2 of the show. So the premise here is that Ashley and Austin work under general manager Josh at a California country club. They witness a fight between Josh and his wife Lindsay, which kicks off the titular beef. And I have to mention that there is also a pretty big Korean cast of this series. So It also stars Yoon Ye-jung, who, again, apologies for pronunciation if that's tough, but she's really well known, at least internationally, for her work in Minari, which was like a critically acclaimed film from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
She plays Chairwoman Park. Seo Yun Jong as Eunice, who is a standout character in my opinion.
Love Eunice.
Song Kang Ho, who is the lead in Parasite, right? I mean, they got these like massive Korean international stars to be in this series. He portrays Dr. Kim, who is Chairwoman Park's husband.
Right.
So, Geoff, before we get into the series, Season 2, what was your history with Beef Season 1?
Well, I watched it when it came out, and I believe that we talked about it. Did we talk about it on the pod?
It was my What's Good a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay. That's why we talked about it a little bit. Yeah. You know, Stephen Yeun and Young Menzino, great performances. Loved Ali Wong in this. I'd only been familiar with her stand-up before. But part of what I loved about this show was that it really delves deeply into the motivations of the characters, which I'm always fascinated by. And we don't always get a focus on that. A lot of times when we're consuming media, we get like a very plot-heavy film or work. And in this case, we got to do really deep dive on the characters' backgrounds and deeply understanding who they are. Like, I felt like I had a very good idea of all the moves that these characters were going to make.
Yeah.
And I love that we also got to do that in the second series, really, of Beef.
Yeah. I mean, I've already kind of gone into my thoughts on Season 1 when I talked about it for my What's Good. So let's just get right into it. So why don't you talk a little bit about your overall thoughts and impressions about Season 2 of Beef?
Yeah. Season 2 in Beef was really fun because this was kind of an examination of the cracks in the china, which I always think makes for compelling TV. That's part of why I love The Real Housewives, especially Beverly Hills. That's like the best example of that being like the theme of that show. Because there really is there are so many worms underneath everybody's carpets and no one wants to talk about them.
Would you say ants, perhaps?
I would say that. I would say that there's an invasion of pests.
Yeah.
And people want to ignore that constantly. And the visuals that we had of like the ants like working and creeping around in the background of the show, I thought was really wonderful. The cinematic shots, I love that they did some fun psychological things where they like flipped characters so that characters could see themselves either as they are trying to become or seeing themselves in characters who they used to be. Does that make sense? He drowned. Does that make sense?
That definitely makes sense. I think that there's a lot of projecting of oneself onto other people, whether that be aspirational projection, like I want to be this person, or whether that be like I remember being this person, right?
Yes. I thought that was really effective filmmaking because it's like highlighting for the audience that these people are changing and this experience that they're going through is like changing who they are at their core.
I mean, I agree with you. So I have some notes on the season. I do think that it is a slight downgrade from Season 1. And I think that it's a classic second season of television problem.
Sophomore slump.
Yeah, well, not really a slump, but they basically just said, like, let's do more. And it's just kind of like more of everything. There's double the leads. There's a lot more big set piece action sets in this season of television, which I feel mixed about. I'm like, listen, Jake Schreier, we know you did Thunderbolts, but we don't need a Marvel action set piece in our like prestige miniseries on Netflix. You know,
I am gonna disagree with you on that because I loved that last. It was the penultimate episode, right?
The set piece that we're talking about, I believe, was the finale.
Okay, I didn't expect it. It was really heightened. It almost felt like anime or manga, and I really enjoyed it. It did come out of left field.
It was really out of left field. It felt unnecessary to me. It felt like
a little Tarantino-esque to me.
I guess. It was definitely more like, it felt like a flashy, you know, like check this box for your prestige television drama. We need an action oneer. You know, that's what it felt like to me. And it really wasn't doing anything that was felt necessary for the show. In fact, my overall critique is that I think that the Korea plotline took over in the back half of the season in a way that I didn't enjoy.
Okay.
Because I think that what I was most fascinated with is the performances of the 4 leads. And I think that this series is still going to absolutely sweep the Emmys this year. I think these leads are definitely going to win.
They were fantastic, all 4 of them.
Best actor, best actress, best supporting.
I bet they'll win best ensemble at SAG.
For sure. I mean, I think that they're still going to sweep. The performances are incredible. These are 4 of our best actors working right now, right? Yeah. So the performances are great. And then suddenly in the last 3 episodes, it's like, hold on. The real beef the whole time was actually not between these 2 couples, which again, it kind of gets away from the whole premise of like, oh, okay, this isn't really beef anymore. Instead, now we have this like almost cartoonishly supervillainous Korean company that is trying to kill all 4 of them. And they kind of all team up in, again, a very like Avengers-y way at the end that felt a little bit contrived and not like beef, right? I think that Beef Season 1 was very tightly focused on the beef between Steven Yeun's character and Ali Wong's character, and it was an escalation of that beef.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the beef between these 2 couples in Season 2 petered out, and it became a different show.
I see what you're saying.
Now, that's not to say that the show wasn't extremely funny. There were multiple laugh out loud moments for me.
Yep.
It's also, I love the more psychedelic and strange elements that you described, right? I think that like there's a drug trip sequence in this show that was extremely funny.
Yep.
There's some dream sequences that are also really interesting. The whole hospital sequence, I think, is really cool and interesting.
Love the hospital.
So like moment to moment, I was entertained. But I just think like as a season of television, it didn't gel quite as well as Season 1 did. So that's my high level thoughts.
I do think it was like a very different take on the idea of a conflict.
Yeah.
And it escalating. And like, it almost had that, did you ever see that movie from the Coen brothers, Burn After Reading?
Yes, I did.
It kind of to me felt like that, where it's like, oh, the original problem, or that other movie that came out on Netflix a few years ago called I Care a Lot.
I did not see that one.
That is great. You should really watch that. I think you'd love it, because I do think that like the first season of Beef was, like you said, very tightly focused on this is the central conflict of the show, and it just gets heightened and continues to be the center of everyone's demise and despair, essentially. And this has the quality of those 2 other films I was talking about, where it's like, oh, the original problem is just a microcosm of the larger problem here. And because I think that they were really interested this season in like critiquing society, and especially specifically capitalist society, I think that that's why the initial conflict petered out and became a much larger thing. I think that was done to kind of drive that point home.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I do agree with you that I think that was the intent. What I find is that when the thesis of a show kind of just boils down to just like capitalism bad, that's less interesting.
You think it's like trite?
It's not that it's trite. It's just that I'm like, yeah.
You're like, we can all agree on this.
We agree on that, you know? And it felt like Season 1 was saying something unique that hadn't been said before about capitalism and the way that it like keeps us in these cycles of beef, right? And the way that it keeps us constantly fighting against each other, as opposed to, you know, finding what we all actually want, which is connection. And like that was really the end of Season 1. It hit for me. Like I know a lot of people didn't like the ending of Season 1 because it ended the way that it did, but for me it hit because the whole message was like, all of this is conspiring to keep us apart when really we need to be seeking connection with each other, right?
Yeah.
Season 2, we're keeping it relatively spoiler free at this point, but like the ending is not quite as, not that Beef Season 1 was a happy ending, but like it's even more dark and cynical, I think, than Beef Season 1. And this is why I'm not surprised that you liked it more than me, because I think I tend to be more of a romantic and you tend to be more of a cynic.
Yes.
Not even like in terms of relationships, but just like in general.
No, definitely. I agree.
I think that, like, for me, this show was very cynical, very dark, even though there are moments of like comedy and levity.
Yeah.
But just like thematically, it was deeply dark in the way that it ended, in the way that things kind of ended up.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that I really enjoyed about this season was that they engaged with race in a really interesting way and racial identity. Austin's character, he is of mixed heritage,
Yeah.
and doesn't feel, kind of struggles with like feeling a lack of a connection to his Korean heritage, because he basically says that he was brought up as like, you know, just an American, and there was no focus on his heritage. And so when he's surrounded by these other Korean people, once Chairwoman Park's company buys out the club, it was really interesting to watch him like trying to seek community and identity and commonality with the, you know, people from Korea who are deeply connected to that culture. That is their culture.
Right.
It was fascinating to watch because, you know, I just kind of related as a mixed race person too, like not feeling like you quite fit in, but like that you're sort of part of many different things.
Yeah, and his almost like voyeuristic relationship with Eunice, who is this kind of like aide for Chairwoman Park.
Mhm.
It's like, I wouldn't go as far as to say creepy, but
no, I don't think it was creepy.
But there is this thing of like,
he was like infatuated.
Yeah, he was like, "Can you let me in on some of that Korean energy that you have?" Like,
Yeah.
he was like, "I want to know more." And Eunice is like, not really interested in actually having a relationship, but she's like, he is hot.
Right.
Eunice, listen, if the show centered on Eunice, or we had a couple of Eunice-centric episodes, I think I'd be all in on this show. Eunice is the most interesting character in the show in some ways. I love Eunice.
I was a little disappointed she didn't have more of an arc.
Yeah.
And like the finale, I don't remember what happens to her. Maybe
we don't really ever see what happens to her.
Yeah. Okay, good. I thought it was just my bad brain. I thought you were going to be like, well, actually, Geoff, it was a huge part of the last episode. Yeah, I would have liked to see more of her.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit, I guess this is part of my light critique, is that it felt a little bit overstuffed with they had these 4 characters that they had to dedicate so much time to. And all of the other characters felt a little bit less developed. And then as the Korean subplot became the plot, it was like, oh, now we're going to have to focus on these characters that I personally don't really care as much about because we haven't developed them as much.
Mm-hmm.
To go back to our kind of core 4, you're right that the theme of race, and especially like assimilation into American culture of, racial identity, that's definitely one theme. But I think that there are 2 other themes that are like really heavy in this season of television, which is generational divide, right, between Gen Z and the elder millennial couples. And then also gender divide in relationships. And that's another thing that I have complicated feelings about, because there were a few times in this series where I was like, is this show like really gender essentialist? Like, is this show kind of sexist maybe?
It felt like to me at the beginning that Ashley and Austin were almost like simultaneously like supposed to be like eye-rolly examples of like what other generations think of as Gen Z, like too many big feelings, performative goodness,
performative openness, I think, is the most important thing, right? Because like Austin is quite open with Ashley. Some would say too open. I personally would say too open. I think openness is like a little bit overrated at some point. And then Ashley claims to be open, and then is perhaps the most repressed of anybody in the show, right? Like she has all these feelings that she's not letting out, or she's not expressing, and she's doing all of these things behind Austin's back.
Yeah.
Which, to me, I was like, this is towing the line of like sexist trope here. The feminine manipulator.
Cunning woman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that later on in the show, we see that there's a divide on gender lines, right? Where we see Josh and Austin hanging out, and we see Ashley and Lindsay hanging out. And the kind of the lines are redrawn in terms of the beef, right? And we start to see this conflict along gender lines as opposed to along generational lines.
Yep.
And the thing that Ashley and Lindsay bond about is fertility and having children. Whereas the thing that Josh and Austin bond about is about, hey, what if you want to have sex with somebody else who's not your partner? Again, I felt a little bit like this is a little bit reductive. I don't know that I liked the gender politics in the show.
I'm not convinced of them either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was kind of like, there's like a little bit of an underpinning of like conservatism here, and I don't know what that was about. Like it almost like celebrated the idea of like traditional gender roles, like you said, and the trad wife thing, or trad family structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like a lot of Gen Z is like fascinated with, it seems.
Yeah.
Especially on TikTok. That is kind of an interesting take on what's going on, in kind of an interesting like reflection almost of like what American society is like right now, because we're kind of seeing this in like as an audience like, oh yikes, this isn't great.
You're totally right. I think it is a reflection, right? Because I think that the attitude and part of what makes the trad lifestyle so appealing is it's like getting away from all of this tech, all of this stuff, all of this materialistic society that we all live in. And I do think that like Lee Sung-jin shares some of that philosophy, right? Like this is kind of what both of the seasons of Beef that he's put out so far is about, is like all of the trappings of modern life, how they keep us on these cycles of anxiety, and then we spend money, and then we're more anxious, and then we spend more money. Like, it does feel a little bit not necessarily politically conservative, but conservative in the way of like all of this stuff is bad for us. All of this new technology and these new trappings of modern life is bad for us.
Yeah. And I think with that, like inevitably people are like, well, let's live how we used to. And that means sometimes they like take on the habits that we got out of for a good reason.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
A couple generational things that I thought were accurate.
Yeah.
I thought that some of the generational stuff was a little bit broad.
I think it was supposed to be almost like a caricature.
Right, because it's a little bit funny, right? You see, like, you go into Ashley and Austin's apartment and they're playing Chapel Roan. You walk into Josh and Lindsay's house and they're playing M83. Like, you're like, okay, here are these cultural touchstones of, like, millennials and Gen Z. Like, we get it. You know, it's a little bit on the nose, but it was funny.
Oh, my God.
I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was so spot on, Austin's use of ChatGPT to, like, fake every single thing.
Oh, my God.
Really incredible stuff. I also really liked the way that Lee Sung-jin incorporated phone use and technology into the show in a way that was like reminiscent of the way that a lot of teen dramas or romances like Heat of Ravelry, for example, did, where you kind of see what they're texting. There's a parlance that feels young, right? Like there's a use of like the recently deleted category, like of the messages, right? Like clearly this is somebody that knows the ins and outs of like the messaging app, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So I liked that. It felt very lived.
Yes, it did. And even like just to build on that, like it wasn't even, I don't really think it was a dating app. I think it was like an Instagram like application that Lindsay was using to like basically flirt and emotionally have affairs, you know, with these men who were courting her. One thing that I also loved while we're talking about the generational divide was the interest in looking young that was like repeated over and over again.
Plastic
like
surgery.
Vanity was a really interesting aspect of this show that was kind of like, or of our society that was like explored specifically through the lens of Lindsay, feeling like she, in that group of like women who belong to the club and are there all the time, and like she's there all the time because her husband is there and she has done a lot of the decor and like helps in kind of nebulous ways at the club.
She's like an interior designer when she wants to be. She's like mostly a stay-at-home wife, but when she decides that she wants to flex her interior designer muscles, she's like, okay, I guess I'll do some of that.
Yeah, she's like a dilettante almost. Yeah. And so it's interesting seeing, because she like belongs there, but only because her husband's running the club. So like she's never at the same status level as like the other women there who are simply members, and they treat her like a second class citizen, where she's like invited to sit with them, but they'll be like, oh, could you ask them for this, or could you text Josh and tell him that we really need to have this type of tea in the lobby. It was just interesting because like as somebody who has hobnobbed with a lot of high net worth people for work, it's oftentimes like the people that are there come all the time to these events or whatever, and like they see you and they greet you as if you're a friend, but then they talk to you in a business-like way.
See you mañana, amigo. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I also loved, while we were talking about race earlier, I wanted to mention Josh too. Like he comes from I think Mexican heritage in the show. I can't remember exactly. So that plays into it too, where he is like treated like the help in many ways, even though he has like done a lot of really difficult work to make these rich country club members experience like top notch, and he's like definitely earned his place in the world. He's still treated like a second class citizen who never truly belongs.
There's this really interesting 3-tier kind of class system in the show, right? So there's like at the very bottom, there's Gen Z, Austin and Ashley, who are, eating Hot Pockets for dinner most nights. Their idea of like a celebratory dinner is going out to California Pizza Kitchen. They're like poor. When she like blackmails Josh to give her a job. It's a $45K a year job with health insurance,
Right.
which is like probably significantly better than what she was getting paid before, but by no means like a career, like you probably want to rise from that salary, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's like at the very bottom.
But it's pretty interesting because that is like a huge win for them. They were Austin and Ashley were so thrilled for her to be making that much money.
Yeah, mostly because of the health insurance too, right? Because
And
there was a lot of, we'll get into that I guess in the spoiler part, but for sure, there's a huge win for them to have health insurance. And then you have Josh and Lindsay, who's like one tier up from that, right? So they're at least outwardly presenting wealth, right? And I think that they constantly want to obtain more wealth and they want to be perceived as being wealthy and cultured, but they are always on the brink of losing everything, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason why Josh keeps working his shitty job as this manager.
Yeah. Well, shitty because of the emotional toll it takes on him.
Right.
But by all accounts, it's a well-paying, like, white-collar job.
Certainly compared to, like, Ashley and Austin, like their situation, he's getting paid, much better than them, right? Into Ashley and Austin, they look at Josh and Lindsay and they're like fucking rich.
That's the dream.
Because of the way that they're, first of all, presenting themselves, but also they are legitimately getting paid more than Ashley and Austin. But then you have like the real villains who are portrayed by, and I'm forgetting the character's name, but the older white guy that has like the clearly trophy wife.
Yes, I can't remember their names either.
That's to me a better symbol of like the true wealthy. Even better than like Chairwoman Park, who almost seems like a supervillain. Do you know what I mean? Like that is like the third tier of the wealth, at least on the American cast side, right? Because he is the one that's constantly treating Josh like shit. He's the one that is constantly asking for things to be comped, even though he has the money. He has a PJ, right? Like he's able to pay for this stuff and he still wants stuff to be comped for free at this country club. To me, that is like a better symbol of wealth. And like that's like the real villain that is underlining the series, right? Is that level of wealth.
We hear like bits of their dialogue sometimes before Josh comes into a room or as he's entering, and the things that they're saying are just like so morally bankrupt. They're talking about like, voting for what's good for them, financially, and they're like, who cares about the social issues? We just need to keep our money and preserve it. And they just say like totally disgusting things about like poor people and being like leeches and things like that. So they're absolutely like villainous characters too that I don't think necessarily got enough attention.
Yeah, although they had a couple of funny like laugh moments. And why don't we get into the spoiler section so we can talk a little bit more about what the end game of this show looked like. What's up, y'all? Editor Justin here. If you want to skip spoilers for season 2 of Beef, you can go ahead and skip to 1:13:20. Let's get back to the show.
Spoilers abound, F-slurs.
Okay, so we're in the spoiler section, and the reason I kind of segued in that way to this is because I think that it's interesting that they seem to have the most functional relationship of the 3 relationships, or I guess 4 if you count Chairwoman Park and Dr. Kim as another relationship.
And we must. That was interesting to me.
This is part of the like weird gender politics of it all to me, is that they seem to have the most healthy relationship, and it's very much like a trophy wife provider husband dynamic between them, right?
Troy and Ava, those were their names.
That's their names. Thank you. Troy and Ava is the name of the I guess like boomer demographic, right? Couple. Yeah, so they seem to be kind of the most functional couple. They're together at the beginning, they're together at the end of the show. And the show does take some considerable time jumps at the end. So maybe we can talk about kind of what ended up happening with each of the couples as a way to talk about spoiler stuff. So basically this whole beef culminates in a climactic scene in Korea, in Seoul, where Chairwoman Park is basically trying to silence the knowledge that her husband, Dr. Kim, accidentally killed a patient on the table when he was performing plastic surgery. In some ways, there's the fight that Austin and Ashley see that Josh and Lindsay are having as the inciting incident, but like truly in terms of like where the plot ended up, the inciting incident is actually what happens at the end of that episode,
right? Which
is Dr. Kim killing a patient on the table, right? Because it culminates in this big fight because all 4 of our main characters have this knowledge that this happened. And Chairwoman Park is trying to cover it up. So the question is like, are they all going to get killed? Is she going to shut them up in some other way? Are they going to try to, blackmail Chairwoman Park? Who knows? So what did you think about the way that Ashley and Austin's relationship ended in the show?
Well, it's interesting because from the beginning, Ashley and Austin were looking to Josh and Lindsay and saying like, that's the blueprint. Like we want to get to the kind of like lifestyle that these two have. They have like nice jobs. One of them works when they feel like it. They have a lot of money. You know, this is their perspective of Josh and Lindsay.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's what we want to become. Then they see the cracks in the china when they witness the fight and subsequently record it because they think they're having like a domestic violence issue when it really is just they have loud and explosive fights. They weren't actually harming each other. And they were like, oh, wait, things aren't as great as it seems. And what actually ends up happening is that even though they know that things aren't as great as it seems and there are like weird dynamics between Josh and Lindsay, Ashley and Austin essentially become Josh and Lindsay by the end of the episode. They are literally running the club that Josh used to run. And it's interesting here because there is a little bit of a gender swap because Ashley is the one who's actually running the club. So she essentially takes Josh's position. And Austin is like essentially doing what Lindsay wanted to do, which was raise children.
Right. That is interesting. That's true. Yeah. He becomes a stay-at-home dad, although I think it is important to note that while they are in some ways a lot like Josh and Lindsay did not have a kid. So like that's an important difference, I think, in that relationship.
And that was something that Lindsay really wanted.
Yeah, it's something that Lindsay really wanted. Again, this is like some of that gender essentialist stuff that I was I'm a little bit hesitant about in terms of this season. Maybe the most fascinating conversations that we have between Ashley and Austin happen in the final episode, and maybe the penultimate episode, because this was released in a binge, which you and I both do not like. It all kind of blends together in my head, and I watched it all in a pretty short period of time.
Me too. I watched it over 2 days.
There is first the conversation that they have kind of when they're
being held captive.
Yeah, they're being held captive, and there's kind of a wall between them. And Austin essentially breaks up with Ashley, right? And he says, like, you actually don't want to be with me. You just don't want me to leave you, because she has abandonment issues, right?
Yes, because her parents have like totally fucked off and started new lives after they got divorced and just like let her drift off into the wind.
Right.
Very sad.
And it's very sad. It does have this like generational thing where it's like, okay, Gen Z is completely conflict averse. Ashley is conflict averse because she has these anxieties, but she never brings them up with Austin. Austin is trying to be the nice guy all the time. Like, he is trying to be as open as possible with her, but he's so self-conscious about triggering Ashley that he like even brings up like the smallest things where it's like, maybe you don't even need to be bringing this up, right? Or maybe you should evaluate whether you should actually be with this person. For him to have like come out and say we shouldn't be together, I mean, it felt a little bit like saying what we had been observing for the entire show. On some level, I felt on the nose, but I also feel like ChatGPT and Reddit would have told him this stuff, right? Like, this is something where I feel like therapy speak has become so mainstream that I bought that he would have this, even though he's kind of a himbo. I bought that he would have this realization and probably would have been thinking about it, but just didn't want to voice it to Ashley until this point when things were really intense, you know? So that's kind of the first conversation that they have. But then they have a different conversation later where Ashley's like, everything that you said about me is true, but do you really want to leave me and all the baggage that you know I have just to start with somebody new who you don't know at all?
It's definitely like the argument of like the devil you know. Yeah,
it's a devil you know instead of the devil that you don't. And of course, the whole underlying thing of this is that the only reason why Austin is willing to leave Ashley is because he delusionally thinks that Eunice is going to get with him.
And she's like, nope, not interested in that.
I think he was like, love you. And she was like, yep. It was like tough for him, but
that was tough.
And this is why I find Eunice to be the most interesting character, because like she is both fighting for like this information about Dr. Kim to be released. She's also like, I want to get with Austin, but only for sex. Not really interested in him in terms of a long-term relationship. Like, she's the feminist icon that we needed on this show, you know? Give her a little bit more depth.
More screen time.
Anyways, strangely, I saw Ashley's argument, even though it was manipulative, as like somewhat compelling for somebody like Austin, who is like a coward, you know what I mean? And is like so hesitant to risk anything about his life, you know? And of course, they did end up staying together after like the 8-year time jump, and they have a child together, right?
Yeah.
And I think that maybe is the best ending that we have of the two couples, because it's ambiguous. Like, we don't know. They're not quite as openly unhappy as Josh and Lindsay were in the same place, right? They're not openly arguing as much as Josh and Lindsay were when they were in the same place, but they're definitely not the most happy couple. They don't seem the most fulfilled.
Yeah, I think that at the end we see that like they both seem exhausted when they get in the car after their like event, their champagne toast thing they do with all the members. Ashley is like essentially treating Austin like her assistant, and is like, I need you to do this, this, and this tomorrow, and don't forget we have to think about this with the baby and blah blah blah. And like, so it becomes like an interesting dynamic where it's like she seems like she's exhausted and overworked, and Austin feels like, it seems to me like he really enjoys being a dad, but is like also still like doing whatever Ashley wants. And that was sort of their dynamic from the beginning, and that hasn't changed in the show by the end.
Right. They're staying in their loop, right? I mean, we talked about cycles,
which was interesting, and that was like the whole wheel of time thing that we see at the very end. Yeah. It's just like the cycles repeat. People do the same things over and over again. Yep.
Yeah, it was interesting. I will say that I found Ashley to be an extremely compelling character, and perhaps the most unlikable character by the end of the show. Like,
yeah,
first of all, the fight that she had on the plane with Eunice, hysterical.
I don't really remember much about that. Tell me more.
Okay, well, at this point, Ashley does not know about the conspiracy with Dr. Kim. So what's happening is Austin last second decided to go to Korea with her, right? At first he was not going to, but then because Eunice comes to Austin and says, hey, there's this cover up that's happening, can you help me
Ashley's
figure this
in
out?
danger.
Yeah. Well, it's not just because remember that Austin also has a big crush on Eunice at this point. So So I think that part of the reason he goes is because he's like, I'm just trying to help her. I'm trying to be the good guy. You know, like he has this idea of backing up the phone and then returning the phone to Chairwoman Park in Korea when they get there. So he's like, let me try to help you out with this. He gets on the plane. They start backing up the phone. And of course, like Eunice and Austin are like tossing each other, looks because they know about the conspiracy. They're texting each other. And then they have a conversation kind of like where the stewardesses are supposed to be on the plane. And Ashley kind of finds him there and assumes that he's cheating, right?
Yeah.
And I think she calls Eunice a glass-faced bitch.
Yeah, so funny. I love it. Hateration.
All of this tension and all this resentment had been building for so long, and to see it finally explode in that moment was hilarious, and also like a real unmasking of who Ashley was, right?
Yes, the entire time.
Right.
Yeah.
Thought it was so good.
And Eunice, I feel, was just kind of like unfazed by it, if I remember correctly. She was just kind of like, what? That's not what's happening here.
She was like, you absolute crazy person. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Eunice is way too cool to get caught up in all that nonsense.
It really is so good. I mean, that dynamic, I think, of that trio is really, really funny. Also, the diabolical manipulation after she has she has the ovarian cysts, which is a real thing, and we haven't even gotten into the episode in the hospital, right? I mean, the whole like women are not believed when they say that they're in pain in the hospital. This is all real stuff, and like Ashley did have this real condition that ended up, she ended up having one of her ovaries removed.
Yep.
Which resulted in the need for this like IVF, which again, this is part of the health insurance conversation, is that she really wanted to have kids, so she needed the IVF because she had one of her ovaries removed. But after the surgery, she pretends like she has like a lot of pain from the surgery when she really doesn't, just to get Austin to stop having this conversation with her, right? Like there's a lot of that stuff that I think is really complex, and Kaylee Spaney plays it really well. The other scene that comes to mind is when she jumps out of the car when Austin tells her about the fact that he kind of has a crush on Eunice.
He has feelings for Eunice, yeah. There was definitely emotional manipulation for sure. And it definitely was not a good critique of women.
Exactly, yeah. Again, I don't think that Lee Sung-jin was trying to say, like, this is how women blanket statement are.
I don't think he was either, but I fear that it might have inadvertently played into that kind of trope.
Yeah.
But it was tackled head on with the hospital stuff, like you were saying, where they're like, women aren't believed when they say that they're in pain.
Right.
And they're often just like, hey, you're fine, take an aspirin and go home, you'll be fine.
Exactly.
And then they're like, if this lady's hysterical from her period. you know?
I think that that's part of the reason why that is there, is to be like, look, we're not saying that like all of what Ashley is going through is manipulation. Like she has these very valid anxieties and issues. But yeah, just it's something about the way that the entire season was structured around this kind of like gender essentialist idea of like, Chairwoman Park has this conversation. It's like this speech, right? Where she's like, men will only do what they want to do, basically. It's basically like this universal theory of relationships as capitalism. Like people will only do what suits themselves and what's better for themselves until it's not beneficial for them, and then they'll leave. And I think what is like deeply cynical about the show is that it never really pushes back against that. In fact, it seems like that is actually Lee Sung-jin's philosophy on relationships,
Yeah.
which to me is just like a little bit
It's a
too
little dark. Yeah, I also found the conversation that Chairwoman Park has with her husband, the accidental killer,
Yeah, Dr. Kim.
/ plastic surgeon, Dr. Kim. I found that conversation between them, I think it was like probably episode 6 or 7, really fascinating because she essentially says to him that like when she was younger, she married for love. I married my husband because I loved him. And she was kind of saying this, not like necessarily personally, but she was saying it almost as if it's just like a known thing in the world. She's like, the first time you marry is for love. The second time you marry is for the love of the life that you have with somebody else.
Mhm.
And so she was essentially telling him, I don't love you, but I love our life together.
Right.
It was very fascinating to me because I often think that that's true. I feel like I've seen many couples who are like, well, they maybe don't like love each other like they used to. I find this especially in older couples.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily be in love with each other anymore, but they love the family they've created together, the home they've created together, the lifestyle that they live together. And so they stay together even if there's not necessarily a lot of like adoration and affection for each other still.
It's not exactly the same as what you're saying, but it's a little bit like the distinction between passionate love and companionate love, where,
Yeah.
I think that when people say,
I actually do think it's kind of the same.
this is kind of like a teen drama thing to say, but like, I love this person, but I'm not in love with them anymore, which such a cringe distinction. But I think that like passionate love is what people are referring to when they say like in love with somebody, as opposed to just I love someone. And I guess I think that's like a really dark coloring of companionate love, because I do think that in a lot of ways, companionate love is stronger.
Yeah, it's more powerful.
It's more powerful than passionate love, which by definition comes and goes very
fleeting,
intensely.
yeah. Yep.
And I just feel like to color that in this show as being like, basically like a function of capitalism, there's this whole angle of like social Darwinism about this that I also don't really like. Any kind of like pseudoscience-y. Yeah, it's when you conflate biology with like the way that humans behave in a society. That always gives me the ick no matter what kind of media it's in, because I think that like that leads to problems, right? That's how eugenics becomes a thing, when you conflate science and biology with society.
Yep.
So that also gave me a little bit of the ick with this. I don't know that the show is trying to say that that is true, but it is saying that this is the system in which we live now. Because the final shot, other than the samsara, is Chairwoman Park giving a speech at her husband's grave. Again, to end on Chairwoman Park is kind of a crazy choice, in my opinion.
That was interesting to me because she wasn't introduced from the very beginning of the show. And I do feel like if maybe she was like the opener and the closer, or at least like a throw line from day one, it would have made more sense for that to happen. The zoom out was interesting, just cinematically, when you see like within the Wheel of Life different scenes that occurred in the show taking place all around her while she's talking. It felt a little bit heavy-handed, but it was an interesting decision to really kind of like drive home the point of like the cyclical nature of humanity.
Yeah, it felt a little bit like we need something to wrap this up.
I feel like it could have been done a little bit more tactfully than it was, but just cinematically, the last episode had some interesting choices that I thought were worth highlighting.
Yeah, I think that just to maybe one final point here, because we haven't talked about Josh and Lindsay's end point. And I think that maybe another ending, or another potential ending that I think might have been better, is when Josh and Lindsay are reunited, like after he's released from Chairwoman Park's custody or whatever, and they like hug and they spin and the camera's like circling around them romantically. But then you realize, like, kind of after they stop kissing, you're like, there could have been like The Graduate moment. You know, The Graduate, like when he's at the back of the car. No, okay.
I never saw it.
It's kind of a classic cinematic moment where you realize, like, oh, this is not going to turn out well. So, like, what could have happened is, I feel like they could have just kind of ended it with an ambiguous note there, as opposed to what ended up happening was we kind of get a flash forward to 8 years later. And we see that Josh is just being released from prison, and Lindsay actually ends up with somebody else, even though in the moment they were like, I'll wait for you. She was like, I'll wait for you to get out of prison and we'll be back together, right? She actually ends up getting married to somebody else, having a kid, and she's like in the British countryside or whatever, being classic Lindsay. I just didn't like that quite as much as where they left Ashley and Austin's characters, because it felt a little bit too like this is where Lindsay is happier, is having kids in the countryside.
Mhm.
Again, it's that trad thing, this through line that I think keeps
Right.
coming through the show. So it was interesting to me, and I didn't quite like it as much. I think I would have liked it if it was left ambiguous and open-ended whether or not she would wait for him.
Yeah, I think so too.
Any other final thoughts about the show before we get into our What's Goods?
I'd like to know what you would rate this season of Beef.
I'm going to give it an 8, a B-.
That is exactly what I was thinking, Justin. A flat 8. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought there were things that could have been done better, as we discussed, but I think overall I thought it was successful and compelling.
Moment to moment, very compelling. I think as a season, I liked it less. We always say this, but like, I think a weekly drop would have benefited this show so much.
I know.
It felt really fleeting in the culture, this show. Like, it was really hot and people were talking about it. And then, now it's long delayed. And I feel like it's not in anybody's consciousness that we're talking about this show now, like a few weeks after it came out. Couple of like really funny moments, like when Lindsay was like told the coyote that's attacking her dog, like, I'm sorry, this is your land, I'm sorry for being here, and then she literally kills the coyote. Land acknowledgement before you murder the coyote is crazy. That's some white people shit.
The land acknowledgement before you fucking demolish the entire forest and dehome all these animals.
Insanely
so that you can put
funny.
up a Costco.
So funny.
Yeah, that was funny. I felt bad for Burberry. Justice for Burberry.
They killed the dog.
I know. And like, that's the thing you don't do in film, right? It's like, you can't kill the dog.
I felt really attacked by the treatment of pet owners in this show, like the way that I think the show depicts. Well, listen, if it hits, it hits.
I think that sometimes pet owners need to be attacked.
You know what? I'm with you on that. I am, but the way that the show kind of portrayed pet owners is just using their pets as a kind of like an emotional crutch. And then as soon as Burberry died, they just got a dog that looked very similar and called him Burberry.
Called him Burberry. Crazy.
Extremely funny. Where the Filipino nurses at? How about that?
Oh my God.
Also
that was
extremely
hysterical. Hysterical. That was so good.
I don't know if we got into all the comedy that this show does so well. The drug trip, the Bufo trip was also hilarious.
Oh my God. I forgot about that. Yes.
There's a lot of stuff in this show that was just really funny moment to moment. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. One final thing. Lots of good needle drops. There was a Heads Will Roll needle drop.
Love that. I love that song so much.
There was a Phoenix needle drop, a Love Like a Sunset needle drop in the finale, which I was like, I don't know how I felt about this finale, but I'm feeling better about it now that
Good
Phoenix
song
is
choice.
playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really cool song
well,
choices.
What? That's what they do a lot in post. If like a scene's not working, they're like, we need a great song here to help convey what we meant to do.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that was what the choice for Phoenix there was.
Okay, an actual final question.
Oh, okay.
How'd you feel about the celebrity cameos? Because there are quite a few. There was like Phineas, there was Suni Lee, Michael Phelps.
Yeah, they felt unnecessary to me. Almost all of them felt very like plywood.
Agree.
I don't need that to understand that like Josh is like hobnobbing with like the 1%ers in greater LA. Like we get that.
Yeah, felt very Netflix, where it was like, we're just going to throw some money at this,
It felt like Ed Sheeran in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It was like, who
Darog.
needed that? Yeah, Darog, 100%.
Actually, I think the best celebrity cameo actually wasn't even a physical celebrity cameo, but it was when I think Lindsay was like, Childish Gambino shared our post about Burberry.
Yes, that was funny. I love that.
So good. It's honestly a really funny show.
Yeah.
I actually think that if I think about it like a straight up comedy as opposed to like a drama with like deep themes, I actually like it a lot more.
100%. I agree with you.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break and we'll come back with our What's Goods.
Okay. And we're back.
We're so back.
And Justin, before we get into our What's Goods for this week, I got to talk to you about a couple things.
Sure.
I would like to go back to our conversation about the pet owners.
Okay.
Because you were saying you felt a little bit attacked as a pet owner. And I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about why.
Okay, well, the reason I felt attacked is because it was accurate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, well, here's what I'll say. I'm trying not to spoil beef now that we're out of the spoiler zone here, but as pet owners, I think that a lot of people watch shows or films and they care more about the animals than they do about the actual human characters on the show.
Yes, I think that's true of society.
Which I think, I'm constantly being like, please care more about the humans than about the animals, And I understand the impulse to be like, well, the animals are innocent. They haven't done anything wrong. It's like, okay, but still, like, human life, whether or not people are quote unquote innocent, they still deserve like happiness and blah, blah, right?
Sure.
So I'm fully on that end. The thing that I really felt attacked about was the way that we are emotionally dependent on our animals. Do you know what I mean? And like the way that like Josh and Lindsay are both completely like, they're so cynical about everything.
Yeah.
But as soon as their dog goes missing, they're like screaming out the window of their car, like, Burberry, Burberry, come here. Like, it's the most important thing in their life. And that I would be doing that if Franklin went missing. Like, I would be doing that.
Of course you would.
It's just really real. And it just sucks that like one of the most important emotional connections that we have in our lives are to an animal who's like, I might just sneak out the door just to have a little bit of fun,
But like, don't you think that animals are sort of like, in a way, in film and television, stand-in for children?
Well, I think that that's certainly what the subtext of Beef was, right? Is that Lindsay and Josh have this dachshund because they don't have kids, right? It's like a stand-in for kids. But again, it's more of a crutch because this is why kids are more complex, right? They become grown adults. They become humans with complex motivations. They're not, Burberry, who is just something you can carry around and wear a cute sweater. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, I love Burberry so much, though.
Burberry's so cute. Well, here's my thing. I think that more pet owners should be shamed. And I'll tell you why. As a pet owner myself, my little guy's sitting right here on the floor next to me, fully asleep. So sweet. I was thinking about this because our friend Sam sent us an insane sign that has been bothering him. And then our other friend was like, oh, this sign makes me feel like the same as when I see a sign telling us to clean up after our dogs. And she's like, it makes me not want to do it. And I was just curious what that's about. I feel like there are a lot of people out there in the world who do need to be reminded to pick up their dog shit off the sidewalk or out of lawns.
This is a larger conversation. First of all, I feel bad talking about for her not being on the pod. So write in with your response to this if you feel differently.
Why don't you bleep out her name?
Okay. Here's what I'll say.
Okay.
I think that there's multiple different things to this. First of all, just the type of person, she will just be like, I'm not doing that if somebody tells her to do something. That's just her kind of person. And she also loves to give a hot take. So it's not surprising to me that she feels this way.
Do you think a lot of people feel that way?
I can speak for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I am completely neutral on those signs, right? Because I am somebody who picks up after my dog.
Yeah.
Usually what that sign indicates to me is that this person is a little bit neurotic about people in their front yard, right? Because I do agree with on one point, which is that I don't know how effective the signs are. I understand that it's a problem that people are not picking up after their dog. But if people are not picking up after their dog, do you really think that they're going to start doing it if there's a sign in your front yard?
Sign.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. And I feel like when people are not picking up after their dog, it's not because they weren't reminded. Do you know what I mean? It's because they're like, fuck it, Like they are already breaking a known social rule by not picking up after their dog. To explicitly state that on a sign, I don't think is going to change many people's minds.
I think you might be right.
And I think that's the point that I was trying to make, but I don't feel like I'm less likely to pick up my dog's poop if I see a sign. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. I think if people let their animals shit on the sidewalk and like leave it there, they should probably be tried at The Hague for war crimes against humanity.
And that's a hot take.
If it happens like once and it's a mistake, maybe you try to pick it up with some sticks and throw it at least in the grass. The hell strip. Let's talk about hell strips. Why do they exist?
I don't know what that is.
That's about. The hell strip is that little skinny swath of grass that some sidewalks have between that and the road.
It's just an aesthetic thing, right?
Well, I think that, yes, I think that was the idea behind it, but I'm like, does it really look good? It's often called a hell strip because with the heat coming off of the sidewalk and the asphalt, nothing really can survive well there. Like grass doesn't do well under very hot conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason I think that a lot of people should consider a native front yard instead of grassy Bermuda grass.
Rewilding.
Doesn't work out so well. Rewilding. We love to rewild. I love to rewild. I go through hell stripping. So that's just how I feel about that. I'm sure people are going to come for me in the comments again.
No, this is the problem with talking about pets in like a public space, is that people are crazy about pets and
People
animals.
are crazy about
It's
pets.
It's just like babies. Like, I think that everybody just needs to chill. You do not need to
Take
be
it down a
posting
notch.
your pet opinions on a video of somebody else's pet. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen videos of where people are like feeding, let's just say like maybe a slice of a mango to their dog or something. There's people in the comments being like, that'll kill them. Don't do that.
That's
Too sugary.
crazy.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
You're exactly right. That's like when the people like comment like, oh, you shouldn't be buying formula. You should be breastfeeding. It's like, fuck off. You don't know the situation.
Get out of here. Anyways, Geoff, fun sidebar. Pick up after your dog's team. Let's get into our what's good. So, Geoff, we talked about beef.
Yeah.
We talked about the Charli XCX single.
Mm-hmm.
What else has been good with you this week?
Well, Justin, I forgot to prepare one.
Do you want me to go first? And you can
I think that would be great.
Okay.
Well, Justin, we talked about Charli XCX. We talked about beef. We talked about hell strips. We talked about the Bana Chakra, or the Wheel of Life. And Justin, now I'd like to talk about what's good with you.
Well, Geoff, I have been enjoying a video game this week. It's called Mio, M-I-O, Memories in Orbit. Now, stop me if you've heard this one before. It's a Metroidvania.
I have heard this before.
I'm playing it on Switch. I'm bringing this up, first of all, because I'm really enjoying it. But I'm also bringing it up because, really sadly, the developer behind this game, which is the French developer Deux Deuxième, they recently shuttered.
It was called Deuxième.
Deux Deuxième.
D-E-U-X.
D-O-U-Z-E.
Oh.
First word. Second word, D-I-X-I-E-M-E-S.
Because Deuxième means second time, so I thought it was second time, which I thought was an interesting name.
I have no idea what it means.
I don't know what Deux means.
French developer. They recently shuttered, despite the fact that this game just came out earlier this year in January. It was a critical success, and I'm not sure exactly how well it sold, but my impression was that it was like pretty well covered in the industry. I feel like it's a really beautiful game, and it deserves to be played, and it sucks that all the developers who worked on it now are out of jobs.
That is a bummer.
But yeah, it's called Memories in Orbit. You play as this character, Mio, who is this little robot that wakes up on a ship, and you don't really know exactly what happened, but there's a lot of enemy robots as well that you have to fight. You come to learn that this was once a ship that carried people, but now something has happened to them. And you learn through exploring the world, what it has exactly happened to them through environmental storytelling in a way that is really cool. Aesthetically, this is one of the most gorgeous Metroidvanias I've played in recent memory. It has a very like hand illustrated aesthetic, even though it's like in a 2D or 2.5D style.
I like that.
So it has like 3D models, but they're all shaded with like cross hatching, and like it looks very painterly.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really cool. It reminds me of this game Okami that came out a while back in the GameCube era, I believe. But really great aesthetic. There's some great reveals about the way that the map connects with itself in a way that is, I don't want to spoil. In terms of like gameplay pacing, it's not quite as like fast paced as something like a Silksong. It's not quite as slow paced as like maybe a Metroid Fusion or a Super Metroid. Somewhere in between those two. The bosses are quite challenging, although I think that the combat is not quite as strong as it has been in other Metroidvanias. But yeah, it's really fun if you're into this genre of game. I would definitely recommend you pick it up. It's out on Switch 2, not Switch 1, because it is a little bit graphically intensive with that 2.5D art style. But it's really great. And it's a bummer that this developer went out of business. So check it out. It's called Mio, Memories in Orbit.
Well, Justin, that is a big bummer.
But Geoff.
Yes.
Now that I've given you a few minutes to think about what's good maybe this week, what's been good with you?
Well, Justin, I did remember that I sent you a couple of different creators that I've been enjoying this week. I want to talk about a few of them. I just really, I got back on the talk, as we know, and I've been really enjoying my time there, but I've been trying to like limit it to like an hour tops a day, Right. I have a lot of screen time in my life, and I really am trying this summer to like put a little bit of some guardrails up to preserve my time. But there is one Instagram account that I really love, and I just want to shout it out because I would like for this person to have more followers. It's called missladysalad. Basically, this guy, his name is Sean Escargia. I think it's how you say his last name. he just does really funny and very like topical memes, and he does really interesting collage style posts, which remind me kind of like our old bands like album covers for each episode. And so I'm really drawn to that kind of chaotic, thrown together collage type of style of art. And I also love his memes. He's very funny, and he's always got like a hot take on like things that are going on. He has a great post here with Gwyneth Paltrow with like these gigantic condos on fire that says, "Shit from an ass. Surely you poors will love to buy shit from an ass." And I think it's pretty great. And he wrote underneath, "I'm an immoral ghoul and I approve this message," because famously she's forever hawking very overpriced homewares and also appeared in a controversial commercial about Israel. And that's all that I'll say about that. So Miss Lady Salad on Instagram is really great. I love that account.
Wait,
and I want everyone to follow it.
I mean, I feel like we've been sharing memes from this account for like years.
For years.
This is like a very well-known meme account, I feel like.
Well, I mean, he only has 18,000 followers. I would say he's like very popular in our friend group because Colleen and I both love it and we're always sending stuff. I think it's also like got a really huge gay following, queer following, because Sean identifies as a queer man. So
definitely queer for sure. But I also feel like there's a little bit of like, I don't want to say dirtbag left because it's not quite that, but I would say like progressive left politics.
Oh, definitely. Sure. Definitely progressive politics. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, my mayor is Muslim, my bagels are Jewish, my chef is a rat, my vampire is Lestat. I mean, we're talking, this is gold.
So good. This
is good shit.
Another creator that I've really been enjoying their stuff for many years now is a creator called Taryn Delanie Smith. She has so many great short form like sketch videos that she does with some collaborators. Tiffany Charisse is one of the ones who shows up all the time in her accounts. They're good friends. And it almost reminds me of like the web shorts from Broad City. Do you remember those?
Yes.
From like years and years ago?
Remember when web shorts were a thing?
Yeah, webisodes. Yeah, when Broad City was like an online webisode show before it was like the Comedy Central series that we have featured on a past episode. But Taryn Delanie Smith is really funny. She's got a great point of view. She does a couple of different characters that I love. One where she like talks like an old-timey gangster. She's talking like this, see? And I also love that accent.
You love an
I've
accent.
been doing that for a long time. So she's really funny, and she has another thing where it's like her and her friend that I mentioned, Tiffany, are always like gossiping. And it's just like, it's very funny. Her sketches are very lived in, and they're really heightened and like about like real world things. So
yeah, she's a small creator, only 1.4 million followers on Instagram.
Well, I'm not saying that she's small, but I'm just saying I want people to know because these are things that I like, Justin.
You were saying you want them to have more followers, so I assume these are small creators, up and coming.
Okay, well, I do have one that is actually a small creator, 7,000 followers.
Oh, let's go.
And her name is Olivia Nicole Hoffman. I don't know if you have seen any of this, but recently, like the last few days, it's been going around social media like crazy. She has like created like the Titanic theme park all online.
I did see what you sent me on Instagram, and I will say that I felt like I was dissociating because I was like, I don't understand this at all. Like, this is just, I'm not saying that it's not funny, but I'm like, there is something about this that is not clicking with my brain. Like, I just don't know what's happening.
So for those who don't know, and I'm not a theme park person, but I have been to theme parks and I've enjoyed aspects of them. On rides, very often you will have like these videos that you watch while you're waiting, you're queued up on the line, and the video is often done like a direct to camera style like message from the actors. Like, especially I'm thinking of like something like a Jurassic Park ride, for example. You'll have like the actors from Jurassic Park like talking to you and be like, "Are you ready, passengers? We've got to get from the T-Rex enclosure all the way back to the heliport, and we're going to encounter a lot of dinosaurs along the way. Make sure you keep your hands in the ride at all times, unless a dinosaur bite them off," or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like the safety message, but like told as if it's like a real thing
in
the actors are saying to you. Yeah. Anyways, so the conceit of this woman, Olivia's account, is that like you're at a Titanic theme park. And they have that kind of like, safety message from Jack and Rose while the Titanic has been hit. And they're like, all right, we've got to get from, the basement of the Titanic up to the top level and get on a safety boat so that we can, we have to get to the radio to get the, another ship to come and save us. So she's just doing this. And then like, she also does these parts where she's like playing an animatronic version of characters that appeared in Titanic.
And that is what you sent me. And this is what I was just very like, uncanny. What is happening?
It's so uncanny, but I love it.
She's holding like a Swiffer wet jet and is like wearing a tote bag over her neck.
You got to put it in you got to drop a clip in the pod, I think.
Sure.
Come on, guys, grab an oar, let's go. I don't understand it, one of you. What's the matter with you? It's your men out there. There's plenty of room for more.
And there'll be one less on this boat if you don't shut that all in your face.
These rainbows will help me. Come on, people, grab an oar, let's go.
It's really great. She just takes like iconic lines from characters like in the Titanic movie, and it's like, what if they were animatronic? And then I made a funny video about it and moved like them.
And she's always like a little bit cross-eyed for some reason. I don't know what's going. Like,
I think it's adding to like the uncanniness of those animatronics. Like, have you ever been to Madame Tussauds?
Yes.
And like, how uncanny the like wax sculptures are, and sometimes something's a little off, or they look cross-eyed, or like a feature of theirs is just so off that it's like a little odd feeling. She does a great job of like, by being cross-eyed, she makes it look very uncanny, like animatronics tend to do. I don't know. I think she's hilarious. I really have been loving those, and I've been showing them to everybody. Well, anyways, so we'll tag those creators because I want them to know it was me who mentioned them on the pod.
Okay. All right. Just a quick, 3 creators, just sneaking in 2 extra what's goods.
We could just keep the Olivia one.
No, it's okay. We're doing all 3. We're doing all 3.
Okay.
It'll be 2 bonus what's goods on our Instagram.
Dice up whatever I said, because I'm sure I rambled. So you can just dice it up, chop it up.
I'm always chopping it up. Yeah. Chopping it up, not chopped. Important distinction.
Chopped? Are we unk, fam?
Well, that's confirmed, unfortunately.
Fam, are we chopped unk? I was cutting up on the dance floor, fam, sis, and I was chopped unk.
Okay, before my brain explodes, Geoff, let's close the episode. This has been a fun one. Beef Season 2. We're going to be back next week for...
Are we going to talk about beef, Justin?
We're not. We're done with beef. The show, we're always beefing on the pod. However, we will be back to talk about Madonna's upcoming album, Confessions 2, which is releasing next weekend. We're going to be talking about that very soon.
God bless America.
Can't wait.
And Justin, anything you want to say to me?
I don't know what you're referring to. You want me to say Happy Pride again? Okay. Happy Pride.
Woo! Happy Pride,
last
listeners.
Happy Pride of this year's pods, but we'll be back.
What? It's Pride every day on this podcast.
I've been saying that for years.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, this has been Bance, with Geoff and Justin. Bance is created and produced by Geoff Taylor and Justin Benavides. Graphic design by Geoff Taylor. Editing by Justin Benavides. This Charli wants you to hear that the theme music for Bance is the track Nebraska With You by Sam Day and is provided by No Copyright Sounds. No copyrights at all, for use. Email us at bancepod@gmail.com with any questions, recommendations, or just to say hi. If you like the podcast, rate and review us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And tell your friends. I went to like my old man voice. Whatever. Bye.
Bye. I think your turn for the credits.
Yeah. I'll do it my way,
Do it all in that accent.
Okay.